Greetings, music fans. My name is Gavin Stewart, and the topic for this video is, if only I knew then what I know now. How many of us have had that thought enter our minds? If only I knew then what I know now. In the process of addressing this one thing, I'm going to be telling you a story, and forgive me, it's a little bit of a name-dropping story. In my entire musical existence, I've really only auditioned once for a band. And the one audition I did go on was for none other than Lenny Kravitz back in the early 90s, when Lenny Kravitz wasn't quite as widely known as he is today, but Lenny Kravitz was still certainly an exciting professional gig to audition for. So how did this come about? In the local entertainment papers in the tri-state area, the Village Voice, and what was then either the EC Rocker or the Aquarian, Lenny Kravitz placed an ad seeking musicians for his touring band. And while I found this highly unusual, I also found this highly motivating. So I quickly, hurriedly put together a demo tape, and it would have been a demo tape on cassette featuring myself and my brother, who plays bass. Sent it out, not thinking all that much of it. Sure enough, a few days later, we get a phone call. A message is left on my parents' answering machine. Lenny Kravitz Management, we heard your demo tape. We'd like you to come in for an audition. So it was incredibly exciting. By the way, the message did have a few cautionary statements attached to it. The most relevant one was, this is just a final sweep to see if anyone catches our ear or our eye. But of course, being rather young, naive, inexperienced, and really, really excited about this, I sort of put that in the back of my mind. The actual audition was to take place probably about a week after that answering machine message. So what happened? I had a week to obsess, to worry, right? To fantasize, to dream about how this was going to change my life. I literally lost sleep over this. We show up at the rehearsal studio in Manhattan, my brother and I. We actually happened to be the first people to get there, so it was kind of a first come, first serve. Our names wound up first on the list. We're seated in a hallway outside a rehearsal room. Eventually, we're there with about 30 other people, guitarists, bass players, keyboard players, maybe even drummers, I'm not sure. And we're just hanging out, and we're waiting for Lenny to arrive. And my brother and I struck up a bit of a conversation with someone who was seated across from us. And kind of mid-sentence, someone walks into the hallway, and the guy we'd been talking to shouts out, "Hey, Ian, come on over, Ian." And so I say to myself, this guy knows Ian. Who's Ian? And so Ian walks on over, takes a seat. It turns out that Ian was Ian McDonald, who I knew from the band Foreigner. I didn't know him personally. I knew of him from the band Foreigner, which was actually one of my favorite bands when I was a little kid. So Ian McDonald, well-known, professional, successful musician, was basically seated right there in that hallway with me, a complete nobody, and my brother, and 28 or so other people vying for a position in Lenny Kravitz's touring band. It was interesting. I do recall that Ian MacDonald said he really hoped that he would get this gig because he heard the rehearsals were out in California and it was warmer in California. I believe the audition was taking place in March. So March, New York City, still can be pretty wintry and nasty. So Ian MacDonald was hoping for some sunshine as well as a pretty cool paying gig. We're waiting, we're waiting, we're waiting. Eventually, right, through the door arrives Mr. Lenny Kravitz. I envisioned him being about 6.5 feet tall. That wasn't the case, but man, he had a real presence about him. This, what could very accurately be called star quality. He just radiated it. Because I was the first guy to show up and my name was first on the list, I was the first one to go in to the actual rehearsal room. I didn't know what to expect. Lenny shook my hand, told me to plug into an old Fender amp. Lenny was seated behind the drums. One of his guys was on keyboards, right? And it was basically just plug in and start jamming and start jamming. And this audition that I'd been obsessing over for a week, it may have been 10 minutes I was in there. 10 minutes went by in 10 seconds. 10 minutes went by in 10 seconds. Lenny on drums, one of his guys, may have been his road manager or something, on keyboards for one jam, on bass for the other, and before I knew it, it was over. I think I was probably just standing there kind of like deer in headlights mode, and I think I remember Lenny saying, okay, that's good, man, we got it, we can tell. In other words, we heard enough. He was super gracious, very cool, everything you would expect in meeting Lenny Kravitz. I walk out, my brother walks into the rehearsal space, and through the door, I'm doing what everyone else on the audition is doing, kind of listening in. So my brother, did his 5 to 10 minutes with Lenny, and he came out of the room, and we drove home to New Jersey, and we never heard from Lenny Kravitz again. In fact, I think it's safe to say that no one on that audition, even Ian MacDonald, landed the gig. If I knew then what I know now, right? What I would have known is that what is meant to be is meant to be. And so rather than obsessing for a week and losing sleep over this, what I would tell my younger self is prepare, absolutely prepare. Be the best you possibly can be, but realize that the best that you can be may not be good enough for that situation that you're hopefully entering into. History got it right? Obviously, Lenny has had the same guitarist in his touring band for decades. He's awesome. He looks the part. He plays great. History, the gatekeepers, fate, destiny, got it right. So it wasn't wrong that I didn't get the gig. It was entirely appropriate. Now, if the audition had happened 2 or 3 years further along in my musical development, I think I would have had a better shot at it. I'm not saying I would have been perfect for the gig, but I think I would have done a more commendable and respectable job jamming with Lenny. I mean, I didn't fall flat on my face, but I'm just thankful that there isn't a recording of what that actually sounded like or even looked like. So it all worked out for Lenny, and actually, as far as I'm concerned, it all worked out for me. So if you ever go on an audition or a job interview, try to keep that in mind. Sure, be prepared, but ultimately try to channel your energy in a positive direction and going into it with a philosophical sort of mindset where if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, is going to allow you actually to perform better, right, during your audition. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. If you like what you saw and heard today, please hit like. If you'd like to meet again in this virtual forum, please subscribe. Thanks. Take care. Be well. And let love rule.